YouTube. As you can see, I'm on my own today for reasons that will become clear in the next few minutes, I suppose. But I also wanted to say thank you very much to Brian Barnes for joining us last week. It was a really good chat with Brian. We covered a lot of stuff to do with mindfulness and wellness. Brian touched on his career as a nurse as well, and the industry. Is that the proper word for it? Not really, I suppose, but what's gone on over the last 20 years, we'll say, and how it's improved and maybe not improved as much as we would have liked it to. The healthcare system, that's what I meant to say. But yeah, Brian, thank you so much for that. Thanks for all your support during the week, for the likes and shares and subscriptions and all those kind of nice things. And you're very welcome to today's podcast. I want to do a little solo one because there's a couple of things that I guess I wanted to touch on. And, you know, if you've clicked into this, you'll see that the title is Setbacks and Scandals. And there's two very distinct parts to this podcast. And, you know, I think we've probably talked about setbacks in a roundabout way, but I hadn't really explored the psychology of setbacks and how we, you know, manage them and maintain our mental and maybe physical health during these setbacks. And, you know, setbacks come in a wide range. So we're going to touch on that. And scandals is kind of more to do with maybe the fallout of the slap heard around the world, as one paper called it, with to do with the Will Smith incident. Not really going to go too much off the Will Smith thing. It's been covered by everyone, but kind of go into scandals and the big scandals of their day and cover that. It's what time is it? It's like 6:46 a.m. on a Sunday morning. I think it's the 10th of April. I think it is. Yeah, it is. You might think he's recording. Maybe he's recording this so early because he's such a busy day ahead. That is certainly not the case. It was either do this first or do the cleaning first. So that's the levels of busyness and socializing that I'm going to be doing today. So yeah, get the recording done. It's one of the things that plays on my mind. I was going to do yesterday as well. Obviously, when you don't have a guest, you can do whenever you want. And there's that, which is a positive. But the interesting thing about doing a solo one is, like, there's a lot more work to the solo thing, as you can imagine, because when I have a guest on, I really look forward to having guests on, as you know. But you obviously have to do a little bit of research, like, depending on the guest, of course, and depending on the subject matter. But it you know, it comes with a certain amount of research, you know, thinking about the right questions, making sure that your questions are interesting to the guest, interesting to the people listening, and interesting to yourself, of course, as well. And you don't want to. I don't mind asking. I guess, look, I will say this: there's no such thing as a stupid question. You know, I do believe that when it comes to podcasting and you're talking to someone you haven't met before, I definitely agree that there isn't a stupid. But you also want to appear at least partly intelligent as to what you're talking about. Sorry, I'm not looking at the camera. I'm looking at myself, and it's weird. Sorry, I should be looking straight at the camera. But yeah, you want it to be interesting for all parties involved. So it does, when you're on your own, you realize, I have to talk for like 45 minutes, an hour, or whatever it is. Make it interesting. And that's what I wanted to do with these two separate things. So I hope I've done that. So we're regarding setbacks, and what I've been thinking about setbacks quite a lot was to do with people who may not know. Everybody will say I went on about it a bit too much. A knee injury that I had in jiu-jitsu. So basically, there's a position called lockdown. Someone traps your leg, basically, and they trap your leg with both their legs. So it's kind of like it suggests, lockdown. It's kind of stopping you from moving. They might be setting something up or stopping you from doing something. So someone got me in the lockdown. I was on top, and it was this kind of perfect timing on both our parts. So when you get the lockdown, you can stretch the person's leg out because you're in control of their leg. So as the person stretched my leg out, I was in the process of escaping. So I was pulling my leg, and I felt some kind of a separation in my knee, not a dislocation or anything like that, just a weird feeling. But, you know, obviously it was a kind of a separation thing. And I kind of went, I should have stopped then and there, but, you know, you're in the middle of something. Then. So I kept going, and I already told someone I'd go with them before we finished up for the day. So I went with them. I shouldn't have done that, but I went with them. And Yeah, so I was out for about 2 weeks, I think. Um, I was doing a little bit of walking. I was doing some CrossFit upper body stuff, but I couldn't train in jiu-jitsu. Then I jumped back in way too early, but thinking, we all have this thing that we're all, macho men, and we'll all be grand. And I went in and I rolled like 3 days, I think it was. And I came to the conclusion then that this wasn't working. There was nothing getting better. And if anything, after training, it was definitely getting worse. And the swelling that, I could see in my knee, but the inflammation I could feel in my knee were, it was getting a lot better, or sorry, a lot worse after training. So I had to unfortunately come to the decision that I had to stop for, I don't know. I actually don't know. I missed last week, we'll say. So I'm 1 week into stopping for a number of weeks. Now, somebody said wait 2 or 3 weeks. Now, I waited 2 weeks the last time, it didn't work. So I'm going to have to wait longer than that. But, other people have said you're going to have to wait 6 weeks. And 6 weeks is like, oh, God, that's an awful long time to not train jiu-jitsu and not run, because I haven't been able to run either, obviously. But I mean, it's the sensible thing. People say that to you because they're not trying to stop you from doing what you love to do, but they're trying to help you and saying this will cut down the recovery time that you'll need. Because if you do 6 weeks, you'll be fine. It should be fine. You'll be able to get back to it. So it's one of those things where I have to be patient with it, but at the same time, I know that. I guess that the implications of jumping back in this time too early would be, it would mess my knee up again, I'm sure, but it would also affect my mental health. And as I mentioned, I think I did a live there recently where I talked about the mental health side. I think which is usually important that I need to keep on top of it, because I don't want to go down any kind of dark, any dark place. That a self-inflicted dark place, I guess, because if I jump back in, I will be putting myself into that risky category of falling out, for more weeks. And obviously I don't want to do that. So I've been still heading to the gym. I've been still going in, and Martin's been able to work around the knee injury when it comes to CrossFit, to do with upper body stuff rather than any weightlifting or workouts that involve the leg too much. I actually I have been able to use the assault bike, which I actually quite like using. People don't seem to like it that much, but I actually don't mind it at all. And I suppose I've cycled for years on the roads to get in and out of the gym and stuff, so obviously I'm suited to it, we'll say. But at least I'm able to do that, and that's some cardio. And because even when I'm walking, there's a weird thing when I'm walking. I'll go out for a walk on the road here, and I'll get about 2 kilometers, and the knee starts clicking, and obviously that's not supposed to happen. So you don't want to do any further damage, but you're thinking, can I not even just go for a little walk? But yeah, I've gone into the gym for the head, and that's really important. It's really important for me that I've still been able to coach. Now, I obviously have had to adapt to that too, because I can't, if Martin's showing something, for the week that's in a position that I'm not able to do with my knee, I have to kind of adapt to that as well, and come up with an hour's training for the adults classes, where I'm able to do the moves to show them stuff without further injuring the knee. Now, everybody knows I have an injured knee because I keep banging on about it. So everybody's cool about it and making sure that this isn't hurting your knee. Is this all right? Can I go? So yeah, everybody's like that in there. It's very cool. A very exciting thing actually happened on Wednesday, just gone, that Fusion had their first women's only jiu-jitsu / self-defense class, and I got to coach that. I was really looking forward to it. We got a few in for it. Hopefully we get more in as the weeks go on, and maybe word of mouth spreads around. But the women who came into the class were really up for it. We had a lot of fun. They picked it up really quickly, which was brilliant, because definitely quicker than I picked it up when I was in there for my first class. But we're teaching the fundamentals of jiu-jitsu, which ties in with self-defense, but we're obviously going to be showing self-defense stuff as well, which you wouldn't normally see on a jiu-jitsu mat. So to mix those two up, and like I've been talking to Martin about what he wants to show, and I've had my own ideas as to what would be to the forefront of self-defense, I guess. And fundamental jiu-jitsu. So it's brilliant, and it's keeping me from sitting at home moping about about my knee. But so that was kind of the background, I guess, of what like setbacks I was talking about, and how I was thinking of how I could deal with the setbacks, So I went into research mode, and this is what I found. Okay, so this article that I took notes from is from Psychology Today. I think it's, sorry, I can read this right. So it's the 9th to the 7th, 18. Now it's from Psychology Today is America, so that could be really the 7th to the 9th, 18, if you know the way the Americans do their dates. But Stephen Joseph wrote this. So I looked it up about coping strategies when it comes to setbacks, and the 3 coping strategies are, and like I wonder, I thought this was interesting because as soon as I read this, I thought, oh, that's me straight away. And I'm wondering if you listen to this, can you pick out exactly what it is that you are of these 3? So there's problem-focused coping, emotion-focused coping, and avoidant coping. Okay, so problem-focused coping involves attempts to resolve difficulties by taking steps to remove threats and find solutions. People who use problem-focused coping are able to narrow their attention to the problems at hand and not let other competing activities get in the way. They don't get distracted. Now, I know people in the gym that I immediately will say that's what they are. I would say my friend Josh, who's been on here and who's come up a number of times, that's what he is. And it's that, like, the straight ahead, plow forward, I'll solve this. Nothing's going to get in my way, and I'm going to do it. And I'm so in awe of people who can do that. That's not me. If you can guess, well, I was going to say if you guess is me, I'm going to tell you which is me. Emotion-focused coping involves managing one's emotions. When we are upset, we need to do this. Sorry, when we are upset, we need to do this. I need to put some full stops in from time to time. Seek empathy from friends and talks about how she feels. Conversation transforms the meaning that we make about our experience. Through talk, we can allocate blame and praise more objectively, seek new perspectives, correct incorrect perceptions, and find new heights and insights. Okay. That's me. Straight away, I knew it when I was reading it. Straight away, emotion-focused coping, and managing one's emotions. Not my best personality trait, I would say, managing the emotions. Seeking empathy from friends and talking to people. I think I need to find, like, when I had this knee thing, like, I was going to different people about it because I knew they had different ways of thinking about it, without me knowing about these 3 coping strategies. Obviously, this is before I read about this, but I was going to people for these reasons. And I go to Josh because Josh would be able to tell me straight down the line, this is what you need to do, this, and you'll get it solved in this many weeks and you'll be back. And that was what I wanted to hear. But when I wanted someone to reach me on or to go with me on an emotional level, I'd go to someone else, and knowing that they would, and this is me knowing this stuff without reading about it. So there is, I mean, that was me straight away. Now, I know some people, and maybe I was a little bit of this last week or 2 weeks ago. Avoidance coping is when we try not to think about the situation or find ways to shut out the feelings. Turning to alcohol may be one way to cope, but people find many ways to disengage from their feelings or distract themselves from what needs to be done. I was a little bit of that when it came to avoiding. I guess that my avoiding came in when I decided, well, 2 weeks, I'm grand. Even though my knee is still sore, I'm going to jump back into jiu-jitsu, and there we go. So obviously we're not all just straight down the line, one or the other, but there was bits of each coming in. But the emotion-focused coping is me. I wonder if you can figure out which is you. When they did this kind of survey, I guess, Psychology Today, on the coping strategies, they found out that problem-focused copers do best. Look at solutions from different angles and move forward. It is also important to deal with your emotions. So you have to think clearly without doing so. So the emotion thing, obviously, like they're saying here, that the best thing is the problem focus because you're so attuned to thinking that way and going forward with it. But the emotions have to be dealt with too. We're not, obviously not robots. Coping is a skill that can be learned. Recognizing your own patterns of coping, avoidant coping is something that would be worth addressing. So like they say in this, the avoidant coping is something that, maybe you'll need to to talk to someone about, because obviously if you're avoiding everything and not coping with anything, that's going to be a bit of, well, more than a bit of a problem, to be fair. So yeah, like I said, like I'm emotion focused coping. It's like seek assurances from others and lean on others' ideas that can, see at the time. And there's so many people in the gym that have helped me to, see why I need to take more time, but also can understand why. For instance, I was in there on Friday. Friday is just a day when everybody's rolling, so there's no class as such. No, Martin's not showing anything. Now I need to be there for the classes for at least the first half hour on the Monday and Wednesday still, because I need to be watching what Martin's showing people, so I can I'm doing the adults classes on Sunday or Saturday, and also the women's classes on Wednesday. So I need to have a plan for those two classes. So to watch what Martin is doing, I need to kind of take it in. And that's helped me as well, just to be around the lads and have a chat with the lads, and to stay in touch with the people in there, because I think if I was just going CrossFit and going home, I'd be pretty miserable. And I make sure I leave before everybody starts rolling. That's the most important thing, because that's the bit I miss, obviously, and I don't want to be standing there watching everybody do it, because I'll be feeling I'm on the outside, So it's now down to me to kind of keep my brain occupied, to keep in touch with people. And it's only a knee injury. It's only I don't know what it is. I was going to say it's only such and such, but I don't know what the knee injury is. But I hope that it's going to heal. It's a weird one, because I can go forward and back with regards to swinging the leg, would say, but once the knee has go from side to side, there's no stability there without pain, and there's a little kind of jerk and a little ping, and it just feels very loose. And that click when you're walking too much it's not a nice thing, because obviously your leg isn't supposed to do that. So I'm going to keep my brain occupied. I'm going to, apart from training, I'm going to read, and I'm going to watch films, hopefully better than the one I watched last night called Antlers. It was a horror film. It was pretty crap, but it's one of those films where the trailer looks really good, and then the film is like, oh, they took all the good parts and put it in the trailer. So so that was my little bit on coping, and the 3 different types of coping, and how we come through them. And if you have ways of dealing with setbacks better than this, please get in touch with through our Instagram account or Facebook or whatever, and let me know how you do it. Or if you've had an injury, and I'm talking about maybe even a significant injury, we'll say, like something like a broken leg or something, when you are so used to training, how you got through it and how you dealt with it. I'd love to actually chat to you about it. That'd be really interesting. But that's my bit in setbacks. Look, we've all had setbacks when it comes to this. This is an injury. We've had love setbacks, money setbacks, all setbacks in all different ways. And it's how we deal with and rise from them, and get back to where we once were. So yeah, I'm going to read. Actually, do you know what? I'll read out the ad now, and then we can get into the next part of the podcast. So I'm just going to leave the copy here, because I don't have to at least look towards the screen, because there's normally a guest there. So Fusion Training Center, Monksland, Athlone, a place to train in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, kickboxing, martial arts, and CrossFit. A great atmosphere with experienced coaches and a real sense of community. If you want to join the team, find us on Facebook at Fusion Training Center, or drop in for a chat. Fusion Training Center, train like a warrior. And like I said, the women's classes have started. If you are interested at all, give me a shout, or give Martin a shout, obviously over at Fusion Training Center on the Facebook page or the Instagram page, and come in for a class or a trial and see what you think. And I'm not going to go into jiu-jitsu again, but it's so beneficial, and it's helped me with many things. But it's great to learn a new skill anyway, I think, and get fit. It's another thing. So, sorry, I'm just fixing it. I've got a blog here that I printed out, and I still don't know how to print things out, because I got a massive page on the front of a picture, which I didn't really need. So the next part of the podcast today, actually, let's just get a drink before we start. So we all know what happened there a couple of weeks ago at the Oscars. And the discourse has been tedious, to say the least, because everybody has had an opinion. And I suppose when it comes to those kind of huge moments, because it was a huge moment, the Oscars got 15 million, what's it called? 15 million people watching. Ratings. Yeah, the ratings were 15 million, which is, compared to the old days of Oscar viewing figures when it was up at 50 million, 15 is quite small for them. But I can imagine the next 5 minutes after that slap, it probably went up quite a bit, because you know how Twitter. Sorry, but I'm falling apart here. I had to blow my nose. This may be a first time on the podcast, but most professionals would edit this out, but I'm not going to. Excuse me, but it's better than me sniffing my way through. So the ratings weren't the best, but everybody had an opinion on the slap. Everybody kind of felt that they needed to, particularly celebrities that were asked about it, they need to, have some sort of a say on it. And most people fell in the camp that, well, it was assault. You slap someone, whether it's live on television or not, it's assault. So most people fell on the side of Chris Rock. Now, look, if Chris Rock knew about the alopecia that Jada Pinkett Smith has and suffering from, it's a nasty enough joke. But this is the thing about comedians, that this is their, this is what they do. It's the kind of roasting of people. Now, he says he didn't, and you kind of have to take on that word, that he didn't know. And if he didn't know, it's just a bad joke. It wasn't a particularly funny joke, like regardless of alopecia or not. Jada Pinkett Smith had every right to be offended by it, because if someone's having a joke at your expense, she threw her eyes up. So what? Like, I heard this. I won't even go into who it was, but I heard someone talk about this for 20 minutes on the subject of, it was her fault that the slap took place, because Will Smith wouldn't have done anything if he didn't see her rolling her eyes. Like, so I don't know how that makes it her fault, though, because she didn't tell him to go up and smack Chris Rock. He took that on his own, right? And he will see that as, I'm defending my wife. Fine if you're defending your wife, but you still assaulted someone, and the blame can't be attributed to the person who the joke was about, who threw her eyes up. Irrelevant as to what you go back to, looking at the marriage of Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith. I don't care about their marriage. They did that thing around the red table, whatever it's called, where they had this very open conversation about her affair with a rapper, and Will Smith kind of had to sit there and listen to it or whatever. I didn't see that, by the way. It's why people would do that anyway out in the public. I will never know, but maybe I will get into it later on, though. That's just a little link. But yeah, it's not relevant, to the thing. It's literally a joke was made. Will Smith took it upon himself to go up and smack Chris Rock in the face in front of 50 million viewers, but doesn't even count anymore. Ratings don't count. That immediately went up on Twitter, on everyone's account, on Facebook, on YouTube, and the viewership is, up, in the billions then of that, the slap heard around the world. But what was funny afterwards, and a couple of days later, I saw a tweet by David McWilliams, the economist. People will know him, but he's the Irish economist, who's he's everywhere when when Ireland's finances are going downhill. He comes out again. He's kind of like he's like the Eddie Hobbs that won't go away, I think. Whereas Eddie Hobbs went away, David McWilliams just keeps popping up. But it makes it sound like I don't have anything against him, whatever. But he put up a tweet, and it was one of those. Look, your intentions are good. People put this up. It wasn't just him, but people's intentions are good when they say this. But what they're saying essentially is a load of bullshit. What he said was, everybody tweeting. I'm going to look. I didn't write down the tweet, but this is essentially what it was. Everybody tweeting about one billionaire slapping another billionaire when there's a war going on and atrocities going on in Ukraine. And look, the sentiment is right. But the idea of everybody having to live in a world where the only thing that they can concentrate on or pay attention to is the war in Ukraine, or a war anywhere. But this is obviously the one that's in Ukraine. Now, I can tell you, I do not watch the news, um, so I can avoid the levels of depression. And this is every day, by the way, depression. But at the moment, the levels of brutality and depression that's going the levels of brutality that's going on over there, the levels of depression that will hit me if I have to tune in every day, only focused on that. So what he's suggesting is that we shouldn't focus on anything else. The Will Smith, Chris Rock thing, people see it as frivolous. It's a bit of a celebrity scandal. That's exactly what it is. But we love that. Like, people love celebrity scandals. People love seeing these almost untouchable millionaires or billionaires, whatever you call them, fall. We have this kind of thirst for it. And there is no way that we as a people will decide, oh, so there was a slap on live television at the Oscars, which is meant to be a prestigious event where, only millionaires are invited, that we're just going to ignore that because the atrocities that are going on in other places in the world. And we can pay attention to both, by the way. That's another thing. Like, we haven't just got like most of us don't just have a one-track mind where we can just focus on one thing at a time. But people need that relief. People will see it as comic relief. People will see it as just gossip. It doesn't matter how people see it. The idea that all you think we should just be focused on the Oscars is laughable, or on the war is laughable, unfortunately, because we can focus on that, but we can't spend all our days constantly seeing images that we saw this week in particular, over in Ukraine, in Bucha. I think I'm probably mispronouncing it, but Dick, our brains aren't wired for that, and we can't just. And I know what people are probably thinking, well, what about the people over there? And I get that too. Obviously, the people over there do have to be in that position all the time. But it's so unrealistic for somebody like David McWilliams to come out and suggest that we should all just be focused on that, and not, the scandal that happened in at the Oscars. Because, and here's the segue, because we love to revel in scandals and drama, right? So I did take notes of this. So again, I'll be reading a little bit out, and I was in a cafe the other day, and I was writing all this out. So it could be dreadful. So what I wanted to touch on first, obviously, was this isn't the first scandal at the Oscars. Now, I did not include scandals such as Eddie Redmayne winning over Michael Keaton at a Best Actor award. That is a scandal, but not in the way we know it. That's in my movie nerd head. That's the scandal there. It's not the scandal of Coda winning over The Power of the Dog for Best Picture there recently. It's not the scandal of Rami Malek winning an Oscar, or Bohemian Rhapsody winning an editing Oscar. Look, focus. I could go. I'd be there. I'd be here for 45 minutes saying all the times that people shouldn't have won. That, Anyway. So I'll just read out some of the Oscar controversies and controversies. No, controversies. It's kind of American the other way. There was a streaker. If you haven't seen this, it's on YouTube, by the way. There was a streaker in 1974. His name was Robert Opel. He was a photographer and a gay rights activist. He walked/ran on stage when David Niven was introducing Elizabeth Taylor. Now, David Niven, if you don't know, was an English actor, very stiff upper lip, a very good actor, by the way. Won an Oscar himself, I think, for Separate Tables was the name of the film, which is quite a good film. But so he was introducing Elizabeth Taylor. I don't need to explain Elizabeth Taylor well, surely. But what he said, his quote was, "The only laugh that man will ever get in his life is by stripping off and showing his shortcomings," which is a very British clipped way of basically putting a guy down. But it's a strange clip. You just see the streaker in the background. It's shot quite well, but there is photographs from within the theater at the time where he's, just in case you want to see his full physique. So, 1973, Marlon Brando refuses Oscar for The Godfather and sent Apache actress Sasha Littlefeather up on the stage to protest on his behalf about the treatment of Native Americans in the movie industry. She went up to not to collect the award, to refuse the award. Roger Moore, I can't remember who was with Roger Moore. I should have written it down, but Roger Moore goes to hand the award to her, and she said, "No, don't want it." Um, Now this is interesting because I hadn't heard about this part of it. So apparently, John Wayne had to be held back from walking on stage. Okay, now after this incident with Will Smith, the number of people that had to hold John Wayne back seemed to have doubled and tripled. It was suggested that two people held him back, the person he was with and that the person who was next to him on the other side. Then it was suggested that the security guards held him back. Now, John Wayne, I guess, would have seen this as an attack on his film career because John Wayne would have been in a lot of westerns, and it was all cowboy versus Indians. And when cowboys, killed someone, it was with honor, and when an Indian or a Native American killed someone, it was a massacre or savagery, and that was what Marlon Brando was talking about. And so apparently, even on Twitter at one point, they were saying 6 people held John Wayne back. So very strong guy, obviously. I've spoken about one of the other controversies, Hattie McDaniel having to sit at the segregated table before winning her Oscar in 1939 for Gone with the Wind. So she had to, all the way back at the back of the theater, had to come up and collect her Oscar, and gave a really dignified speech, which the people in the theater may not have deserved. Everybody knows this one. The Oscar goes to La La Land. La La Land wins Best Picture for at least 2 minutes before the real winner is revealed, which was to be Moonlight. It was a bit unfortunate. Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway were the ones who left red-faced because the person who made the mistake he was named and shamed on Twitter. Then afterwards, it was a big witch hunt as it usually is on Twitter. But there's something about, if you watch it though, Warren Beatty has, the reason it was read out wrong, they had the Emma Stone. Emma Stone won that year for La La Land Best Actress, and Warren Beatty had that card in his hand, so he obviously saw Emma Stone La La Land, but he sees it and then he turns it to Faye Dunaway to read out. So I'm wondering how the bold Warren knew what was going on there. And then, of course, the slap background between Rick and Smith. Yeah, there is a little bit of background between Rock and Will Smith about a joke made in another Oscars ceremony. So it was like something to do with Chris Rock said Jada Pinkett Smith was protesting at the time, it was the Oscars So White controversy where, there was very few black nominated actors, and he said something about, oh, this is like me, not being invited to Kim Kardashian's knickers. I wasn't invited, so Jada Pinkett Smith being not invited, so she was protesting. It was about as useful as that. There was another thing I wanted to point out: the arrogance of the walk that Will Smith made to the stage and from the stage was something that was a little bit. It was an interesting insight into his mindset. Maybe he was just so livid, or maybe he believed that he was entitled to slap someone if he wanted to slap someone. So there was a thing I looked up then about why we do love scandals. So I had a short little paragraph here before getting into more depth on it. The reasons we like it: the unmasking of hypocrites. You can identify, you can disidentify, you can moralize, you can feel elevated in the social hierarchy when a powerful person fails. And I guess we've probably all been through that in the last week or two since the Will Smith incident, So again, you may realize that this is my magazine of choice, Psychology Today by Susan Collard, I think, 23rd of the 9th, 2013. 5 reasons we love scandals. Okay, so I'll get into this and maybe she's written. Well, okay, hold on. So we fantasize about the lives we don't lead. Depression, anxiety, and other types of dissatisfaction results from frustration. One feels that she should be living different, more exciting life. So I guess when it's to live, through somebody else, see it through somebody else. We see these stars as having really important and flashy, jet-setting lifestyles, and we look at that as this is our way to kind of see part of it, but also feel a little bit, superior. for a few minutes anyway. And like it says here, scandals allow us to live vicariously other lives whilst existing in our own more ordinary, non-scandalous lives. There can be no scandal without a scandalized public. Berlusconi soliciting on this is an interesting one. I didn't know this. We all know about Berlusconi and his bunga bunga parties and all that. But Berlusconi soliciting underage prostitutes resulted in very little scandal in Italy. The filmmaker Paolo Sorrentino, if you haven't seen any of his films, you should. Sorrentino suggests it was because Italy loves a good party, which is a great quote. That like, okay, so underage prostitutes, yeah, but were they going to the party? Oh, well, that's fine. It's okay. And then the opposite being Anthony Weiner sending a new picture, which became such a huge scandal in New York. He was running for mayor of New York, I think. But there's a documentary about him called Weiner, and his name is almost perfectly suited to what he did. But it's a brilliant documentary. His wife was very close friends with Hillary Clinton, which probably didn't help Hillary Clinton, even though it's nothing to do with it. But you know the way people think, they line everything up. But that, I guess, shows the difference between the idea of what Americans are scandalized by as to what Italians might be scandalized by. And I'm not judging either, by the way. That's just a point that this article made reference to. So 5 reasons that we love a scandal. So one is vicarious pleasure in the rule breaking of another scandalous person given into temptation. Again, it's just that idea of we love to see other people we love to look through a lens and see other people doing all weird stuff, basically. Pleasure at the punishment of the transgressor, moral satisfaction at the scandalous person being punished, restores faith in the orderliness, why can't I read? It's so early, of the moral universe. I think a lot of people took pleasure from the idea that, say Will Smith's punishment came out yesterday or the day before, and it was, 10 years and 10-year ban from the Oscars. But I think a lot of people thought, oh, that's great, But then there's people were thinking, well, that's not enough, they should take back his Oscar, which I don't believe they should do, by the way. That would be a ridiculous decision, because the reason he won the Oscar was due to his performance and the people liking that performance. If you want my opinion, I thought it was a very good performance. I wouldn't take the Oscar for him. I think Benedict Cumberbatch should have won the Oscar for Power of the Dog, but having seen King Richard, I think it's a very good performance. But taking away the Oscars is nonsense. Someone suggested that it would restore bring the pride and order back to the Oscar for that particular category. And then there was a whole thing in Twitter where people like, well, tell Eddie Raymond to give his Oscar back, and went through a list of all these people were unhappy with having an Oscar for. So look, that's just people having a bit of crack, I suppose. But there's a pleasure within us at having, or at being asked to forgive, elicits a feeling of power and triumph, a feeling of superiority over the famous person. That's another interesting thing, where we think we deserve an apology for somebody acting poorly, which again, it shouldn't, I guess, but we seem to like it. Pleasure in watching someone get away with it, in inverted commas. When you obtain the forbidden object of desire without paying a penalty. Again, if we like somebody, they do something bad, they get away with it, we love it. But if the same person, if someone else did it that we didn't like, but they did the same thing, we wouldn't like it. And that just falls in our own bias. Distraction from the tedium of one's own difficult everyday problems, a great distraction, assures us that our problems are small and manageable in comparison. Yeah, again, that's what I kind of was getting into with the McWilliams tweet. It's a distraction. It's a frivolous thing that really happened, and we need those things. We have to kind of have them, because otherwise, where would we be in our lives? We'd be miserable and feeling the heaviness of the real problems within the world, and we can't really go through that. Look, we project the bad sides of ourselves onto the perpetrator. It is upsetting to see someone break the rules. That's another thing where we think, like, I think it's upsetting if they get away with it. If it's someone we have a problem with and they get away with it, it's upsetting to us. It is the combined reactions of outrage and disgust on the one hand, and fascination and titillation on the other, that makes scandal exciting. That's where fantasy and vicarious pleasure take center stage. And yeah, that's right. I mean, we all know different ways in different people and different scandals that we took a greater interest in, or maybe not greater pleasure, but that's what this article is suggesting, that we do take some pleasure from that. I looked at a blog. I wanted to find out, this kind of covers some parts of it, but I don't, after reading it back, I skipped a lot of it because I'm going to go into certain parts of it, but after reading it back, I'm not sure it covers what I wanted to say, but I can kind of fill in what I thought afterwards. The blog is by Madeline Ford, and it is called Psychology of Success and Demise, Why Celebrities Create Scandal. And then it's got all sorts of people in there, like Martha Stewart, Bill Clinton, Tiger Woods. What's that dude's name who did the... he's in prison for years now for the... I can't remember his name now. Anyway, maybe it's written there. Martha Stewart, Bill Clinton, Bernie Madoff, that's the guy. It says here, right? So what are the potential traits that link success and risky behavior? One obvious answer is narcissism. Simply put, narcissists have a grandiose sense of self-worth, always putting themselves first in order to get ahead. Freud would call it self-love, which he described as something that's very important. Self-love is a very nice way of putting narcissism. I'm not a narcissist. I just love, there's a bit of self-love in me. It's a really strange way of putting it, but Freud was a bit dodgy. Sorry, Josh. Why Is It Always About You by Sandy Hotchkiss outlines what she calls the 7 deadly sins of narcissism, which include shamelessness, arrogance, envy, entitlement, and exploitation. Character traits don't just disappear when success is obtained. God, why am I having such problems? Success acts as validation for the methods used, and a self-perpetuating cycle is started until a new source catches a whiff and the whole story is exposed. We shouldn't immediately think, why would these people do something like that, as though their behavior is aberrant. God, I'm sorry. We should let their sad tales spark a discussion about how their behavior is related to how they became successful in the first place, and what other skeletons they might have in their closet, hidden at various points during their journey to the top. Of course, some people are genuinely stupid and make costly mistakes for no reason, but considering the rate of incidents of scandal among highly successful people, such as actors, politicians, and elite athletes, it doesn't seem too far-fetched to hypothesize a link between their success and their demise. Now, I think some of the points in that are really interesting and well made. But what I kind of wanted to... she says why celebrities create scandals. And what I guess I was reading into it was like, why do they create, go out of their way to do? And it's not... I don't mean that like scandals are created through their poor behavior and stuff. This is a concoction. There's that idea that it's only an idea that Kim Kardashian released or leaked the sex tape that she had back, however many years ago it was. Ever since that tape came out, her star has risen and she's become more and more successful. And some suggest she put that out there. There's always a suggestion that look, as long as it's not career-ending stuff, did the famous person that we're talking about put that out there on purpose, or was it leaked? Did they, again, when you talk about being leaked, somebody get them to leak it? And I think that idea is always interesting, that they revel in the scandal, as long as it's not, like I say, something that is, going to end their career. And that's where this kind of idea kind of comes in, going back to the Will Smith thing, that there's still people believe that was set up, that somehow Rock needed that kind of exposure. I'm not I haven't quite found out this, because I don't believe obviously it was a setup. It was obviously something that happened off the cuff kind of thing. But the people coming up with this conspiracy theory as such, they haven't quite explained what Will Smith got out of it. Everybody knew Will Smith was winning the Oscar that night. He had won everything else. So it's just one of those trajectories that where people who follow the Oscars. If he wins every other award, he's going to win the Oscars. It's just the way it works. And nobody has explained, look, he's going to win the Oscar that night, but he was going to suffer. It could have been a lot worse for him. He could have been arrested, or, he could have been permanently banned from the Oscars. He got a 10-year ban, a 10-year suspension. The idea is, I guess, we feel a little bit weird about some of these things as to why, like how they could be set up and why they could be set up and how it could further someone's career. And I think sometimes we go too far when we talk about like, oh, Will Smith and Chris Rock had this set up, because it clearly wasn't. But yes, some celebrities will go out of their way to cause the controversy or scandals, so they will get them back in the headlines. If they've been out of the headlines for a while, and it comes with that territory of, oh, I was up here, how do I get back to that part at that point? Well, maybe it can create some sort of a scandal that isn't gonna put the nail in the coffin, but might get a few people talking. And the way social media is now, things spread around quite quickly. The idea is intriguing to me, that some of these scandals are set up by celebrities. But I did write down some of the more interesting scandals of this is in my lifetime, by the way, and I wasn't going all the way back in history to look this. So you can be the judge. I guess I'll read them out, and then you can see which was the most scandalous, I guess. I suppose this is probably the most scandalous, but O.J. Simpson's murder case, a kind of a soap opera lived out in, no, I was going to say in court, but it wasn't. It was like that Ford Bronco slow speed, slow chase down the highway in America, and all the stuff that led to him being found innocent of the murder, and everybody knowing, well, everybody thinking, how did that happen? Because clearly, Bill Clinton, Monica Lewinsky, obviously huge scandal. It's really actually refreshing to see how Monica Lewinsky in the last few years has been shown as to be a very, well, she's obviously always been a very intelligent and forthcoming and very nice, well-spoken person, but we didn't see that at the time. We saw, especially in America, they saw us, especially the right wing of America, saw us some sort of a harlot, very old-fashioned word. But like Monica, if you hear or see Monica Lewinsky now, she's made documentaries, and she's I've spoken to people like John Ronson and stuff, and you can see what how damaging this was to her. Obviously, it was more damaging to her than Bill Clinton, really. But it's to see the scandal part taken away and see the real person. Tonya Harding and Nancy Kerrigan. This is just a kind of a mad one, like Tonya Harding and Nancy Kerrigan, if you haven't heard from them, they were figure skaters, and they were going up against each other for the Olympics, both American. And this is a real thing, and you can see video of it. And there's a film called I, Tonya made about it with Margot Robbie in it. That's a pretty good film too. But so Tonya Harding hired a couple of people, or her husband hired a couple of people through her, to break or to end Nancy Kerrigan's chance at the Olympics by just after practice, she went off the ice and went down the tunnel, and you can hear it on this YouTube video, and she smashed her leg with a bat, and she missed out. And it's a crazy story. Probably, you can imagine if this happened between Ronaldo and Messi or something, the headlines it would have made. But it's a crazy story. Slightly more important to the world, WMDs in Iraq. There are no WMDs in Iraq, but that's not what Bush told us. Princess Diana's death, which you would see as a car crash, and then you have all the other stuff that goes along with it that people suggest is some more nefarious deeds going on around that death. Lance Armstrong's doping scandal, which again, if you're not into cycling, I'm not mad into cycling, but the idea this guy will win 7 Tour de France and be doping all that time, and then to have them stripped, and he was like a hero to millions. And Tiger Woods, the cheating scandal, when it all came out about his his off the fairways activities. Tiger Woods has come back since then. He's never been the same player, but I think age and everything else is catching up with him. But at the time when that came out, it was huge, because he was seen as this, at least he portrayed the family man and someone who would be who wouldn't do this kind of thing. But and Michael Jackson's child abuse, I think it was 2003 that happened actually. But when that came out, because there'd been whispers and payoffs before that, and nobody was quite. You won't see. You'll never sell Michael Jackson fans on that. They're never going to believe that he did that, and everybody else thinks he did. So it was a huge scandal for music at the time, and as you can see, it's all sport, music, and politics. But there's many more. But I just had they were off the top of my head. I wasn't going to kind of go in and. I wasn't going to go in and just, find hundreds of scandals and start reading about them, But they were the most interesting for me. And it's funny about doing like one on your own. Like I said, like it's more work, but it's good. It's good to kind of. I was always going to do something about the setbacks, and then I was like, what else could I do? And obviously, the Smith thing had happened a week before that point, and I was like, I'd be interested to talk about scandals and what's your favorite scandal? But it's if you do have a favorite scandal, actually, it would be cool to send it to our WhatsApp or not WhatsApp, what's it called, Instagram or Facebook or whatever. And because I mean, there's so many happening all the time, and we can't get enough of it. Like, what I watched the Wiener documentary. Like, what would I? Why would I watch that only for? Like, if it was a documentary about the rise of Anthony Weiner, excuse the phrasing, but I wouldn't watch that. So I'm watching that I want to see what the reaction to the scandal was. What his reaction to the scandal was. His reaction is crazy, by the way. Actually, you should really watch that documentary. It's excellent. But his reaction is so strange. There's a denial, but there's also the arrogance of and I think it's Uma is his wife's name. I'm sorry if I got that wrong, but there's really candid stuff between them. And she's just having to go through the same bullshit all the time, because it happens a couple of times. It didn't just happen once. And as they're going along, it's almost as if they've had the discussion. He does it again. And it's, it's actually quite sad to see her reaction. But again, for anyone who's, any of us, I was going to say curtain twitchers, but you know what I mean? Any of us who are into that kind of scandal, and we all are, like I said, we all love a bit of a scandal to kind of take our minds off. Like in the article, our mundane lives. It's always interesting to find these kind of ones where you think, why would I have an interest in that person? Oh, because there's a big scandal around them. Yeah, that seems fair enough. I really enjoyed this week's one. I will be back next week. I was going to say who I'll be with, but just in case things fall through, because I know I have a couple of guests, three guests lined up. And so, you want to say who's next, but then at the same time, just in case things fall through, I don't really want that to happen. So yeah, what's going to happen? Or the rest of my days are going to go and clean some stuff. And, nobody really likes cleaning that much. But we all like the house looking clean, or the rooms looking clean, and that's what's most important. Today I decided on Public Image Limited's Greatest Hits, mainly because the song Rise, May the Rose Rise with You, May the Road Ride with You. I'm not even saying that right. May the roads rise with you. There we go. But yeah, I kept Rise as my idea of coming out of this little setback that I've had and turning it around, and yeah, going from there. But what a mad album cover, actually. I don't know if you can see it all there. It's just a mad album cover. But if anybody doesn't know who Public Images Limited are, they're John Lydon, Johnny Rotten, otherwise known as Johnny Rotten. It was his band after the Sex Pistols, and they are, I don't mind the Sex Pistols. Public Image Limited are a much better band. There's a lot more melody. slightly more poppy. But go listen to Public Image Limited Rise and tell me that that's not an absolute banger of a song. So yeah, guest return next week. Thank you very much for listening. Of course, thank you very much to John for helping me out with the tech side of things. To Nathan for the promo. Thanks to my mom, my dad, my granddad, Jordan Calvin. Subscribe to our YouTube if you haven't done so. I don't know if I mentioned that at the start, but that really helps us get the word out there and get more eyes upon the podcast. We're also on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Send on your favorite scandals. We're on Spotify, Apple, Anchor, Google Podcasts, etc. Like I said, thank you so much for watching and for listening at me talk about the two S's. Have a nice week. We will be back next Wednesday. Take care. Bye.